All right. Hey, Doc. Doc. See if the stream is up, will you? Sorry, didn't mean to hang up on you. I think I got it. We just were checking the stream here. Are you good? Okay. All right, we're good. Thanks, Drew. Thanks for the call. All right, see ya.
What that home is like. Go inside.
Live streaming here. It just.
Come along with?
No, I wasn't saying it like that way, but that's probably true. I have. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, right. That's good. Todd, you're live.
That's Mike's there. So then I speak to.
Hello.
Good.
Walking in from the parking lot.
This year. See if you can find one with his little ribbon. But he didn't care. He got a ribbon. He wanted one.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks, Sarah.
Steve is running from one meeting 2 hours, so so he just texted me. He said, "Hang on, I'm either short."
This was the $110. It was a brand new day with the first show. That's fantastic. That's what we're going to do.
How do you go from blue
This
to yellow to
here,
red back?
he's looking at, it's on a lot of, a big screen. Oh, he sees it. See, he sees, he said he's looking at it there. He said he's looking at this.
That was the state fair.
Yeah, that's why it's big screen. This is correct. Yeah, that's his.
Yeah.
Great. She's gonna be in there.
I have 6 o'clock. I'm gonna call this work session to order. Jessica, roll call.
Angie Flint,
Here.
Williamson,
Here.
Schrader, Hampton,
Oh, sorry, here. Sorry, guys. Let's turn on. There you go. You can call it again.
Mike Hampton,
Here.
Maher,
Here. Here.
You missed Mark.
Overberg.
Here.
Any changes to the agenda?
No changes to the agenda.
Motion to approve agenda?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Roll call?
Flint,
Yes.
Williamson,
Yes.
Overberg,
Yes.
Hampton,
Here.
Maher,
Yes.
Hurd.
Yes.
All right, we have several things on our work session list. Item B, Dr. Murley is joining us via Zoom. He's in between meetings, so we're gonna start out with our area demographics and local student enrollment information. We've gone over it before, we're gonna go over it again, make sure we're all working off the same information, and we'll see where time leads us. We might move C above B depending on when Dr. Murley can join us.
Sure. Okay, thanks, Angie. Yes, Dr. Murley, he just texted me. He said he would be joining us shortly. So, but I'll go ahead and go over, we can start with letter B, no, excuse me, with A. He had thought, Steve had thought originally that it was gonna be more like 6:30 or so when he was able to join us. So as I built the agenda, I had the demographics first, and then he let me know the other day. He said, I'm good, it should be 6. So it's not quite 6, but anyway. Mike, are you good? Can you hear us?
Yes, I can.
Okay, very good. So all of the documents that we're going over this evening, they are posted. Dr. Murley's documents, the committee report, the final report is posted on the website. The slide deck is posted on the website, and then the demographics and enrollment information is posted on the meeting agenda for January 26th. So what I wanted to start out with, I'm just going to scroll through, and we'll go until Steve can join us. One of the things that we talked about as a group, as part of our oh, there's Steve right there.
Hello, hello.
We can hear you. Can you hear us?
Sure can.
All right. Very good. So we will pivot. I had just gotten started, Steve, and we will pivot back to your part of the agenda,
right.
which is facilities as ad hoc committee final report presentation. Steve, you can either we hadn't talked about this. You can either share your screen. There we go. And I'll follow along. I'm casting this as well on a
right.
second screen. So I'll follow along with you, and if I need to make it, bigger or anything, I can do that. So.
Sounds good. Well, I appreciate the opportunity to be here, and Mike, I didn't see you with us too, so welcome. And as we go through this, I want to make sure this is an opportunity for dialogue, so you are welcome to ask questions anytime along the way. You are on a very small screen on my right-hand side, so John, if somebody's got a question, please just interrupt me. Sound good?
Will do. Yep. Thank you.
All right, very good. And I believe, John, you made copies of the deck and the report for them?
Yeah, I was just telling, just telling everyone, so the board has hard copies of the slide deck. They have a hard copy of the final report. The report and the deck are posted on the website.
Fantastic. Wonderful. Thank you very much. Pleasure to be back here. I know I had the opportunity to work with several of you as part of that committee over the course of our months together. I really appreciate the time, energy, and attention as a board that you've devoted to this process as we've gone through it. I know John's going to have an opportunity here in a moment, but really just appreciative to everyone in the community who was willing to give up of their time and really roll up their sleeves and do some hard work together. So excited to share the outcome of that with you today. And as I said, as we're walking through here, I would definitely welcome any questions that you have. We won't go through the report page by page. We're going to hit some of the really high points in there. And you may have some questions that are generated by the report itself. And so if they're not covered in the deck, welcome the opportunity to talk about that as we walk through it. Tonight, as we go through this work, I'd like to share with you, and especially for the people in the community who may not have been a part of this process from the beginning, the purpose, charge, and process of the committee, talk a little bit about the shared values and the guardrails we use for our decision making, walk you through the process we use to both generate the ideas and then come up with the board-ready scenarios for you. Take some time and walk through each of those 4 scenarios and the intentionality of the committee to provide that opportunity for the board to consider the scenarios that they generate. So again, we're gonna review the committee's process and guardrails. The original charge, we had talked about coming up with 3 board-ready facility scenarios for you. We have 4. And I'll share how we got to 4 and why we decided to take all 4 of those through the end process of idea generation. As part of that, the committee's, the tables did wonderful work identifying strengths, concerns, trade-offs. I'll tell you now, I'll tell you again as we go through it, you already know this. If there was a perfect solution, if there was an ideal solution, if there was a solution that didn't have any negatives connected to it, you would have already made that decision. And so what we really tried to do was try to make sure that we identified those things that worked really well about each of the plans, the things that generated concerns on the committee, and then recognize that there were trade-offs from each of those choices and really identify what those might be. And then the committee did a really wonderful job. One of the charges that they had on our last evening together was in looking at each of those 4 scenarios, what else do you need to know? What else should you be thinking about? So you'll find that each of those scenarios has a set of questions that were generated by the committee. So again, as we're going through this, we really want to make sure that we are open for questions. We recognize that the committee really tested assumptions. They looked for tensions. And they looked for the implications for each of those options that they considered. What they did not do, and you'll see this as we go through there, they didn't select a preferred option. They did not talk about funding. And they did not talk about any decisions to close any buildings in particular. They looked at implications from consolidation, but aren't making any recommendations per se about closures. John, give you a moment to offer some thoughts here.
Yeah, there are a number of committee members who are here tonight, and I just want to sincerely thank you for the time that you put into this. I was just astounded. I think we had 44 original committee members. I think that first meeting we had 42 that attended, and it was, we only missed, 1, maybe 2 people throughout the whole process. So thank you for your commitment to that. There were a number of you that also took additional time. You went on the tours, we went to Fort Madison, spent a whole evening looking at our buildings, touring our elementary buildings, and then we went to Fort Madison when we were finished here in Mount Pleasant. A full evening riding on a bus, riding on a van down there, and so you were invested, and sincerely appreciate your investment in our school district and just all of your input and feedback. So I know the board thanks you. The board commissioned this committee, and we tried to make it, we tried hard, really hard, to make it representative of our community. And it felt like we did a pretty good job of representation across our community, community-wide. So again, thank you very much for all that you, all your effort into this process.
Thanks, John. I wanted to make sure that we formalize this, just in case there are people in the audience who haven't been here from the beginning. Make sure that they understand from a context what the committee was asked to do. As John said, the idea was to engage the community and bring stakeholders in, and I really appreciate the work that he and his team did, reaching out to all four corners of the district, making sure that we had representation, not just from the normal stakeholders who would be community members with with kids in the school, our parents, our staff members, but also folks who don't have kids in the school anymore, recognizing that they are heavily invested in the work of the district. The committee was asked to go through and identify shared values. We'll talk a little bit about that. They were asked to explore future scenarios, and we really tried to start with a blank slate. And I'll walk through how we went about going through that. And then we wanted to make sure that as a committee that all of the implications from all the scenarios were clear to you, recognizing that the board's got tough choices in front of them, and really try to provide as much information to the board so they can make the best decision possible when they get to that point. Again, things that we did not do. We did not rank order scenarios. We did not come up with a preferred scenario. The only options that we didn't explore in detail, we'll have an opportunity to see. And the reason we didn't explore some of them in detail is because we went through a nominal voting process, and we picked the four that had the most resonance with the committee. We didn't do any cost modeling. We did talk a lot about the concept of at what cost when we looked at each of those models, recognizing that there are emotional costs, there's physical facilities costs, there's dollar costs going along with it, and that was really outside of our scope. But we did talk about that when you look at the implications for each of the models. There was an understanding that some would be more expensive than others, but that's a relative basis and not an absolute basis. And then again, no specific decisions on closures or consolidations, but just thoughts about what they mean when you look at them collectively. So how do we go about doing this? We had a series of meetings. We started in October with an open community meeting. We wanted to be as transparent as possible, so we invited everyone from the community in to let them know what we were going to do, walk through the process start to finish so that they could see that. Really appreciate the work of John and his team, making sure that in advance of and then right after the meetings, that we posted all of the materials online, recognizing that even though the meetings were open to the public, we frequently had people sitting in the audience with us. Not everyone could make it to those, and we wanted everyone in the community to be able to see what happened as we went through. We went through a visioning and values exercise to identify a North Star statement. We'll talk about that in a moment. As John said, it's really important to understand the context of the situation. And at our first meeting, there was input from folks on the committee that not everybody had been in all of our buildings. And so we wanted to make sure that folks had the opportunity to see all four of the elementary attendance centers in the district. We also talked about the fact not everybody had been on central campus and been inside the facility. So John made an opportunity available for everybody to do that. And then in terms of thinking about what's possible, John has good connections down in Fort Madison and having a new facility down there. We thought there was a great opportunity for us to be able to take a look at that, see what another district had done as they tried to envision what an ideal learning environment would look like for their kids. We did a current reality analysis. So the idea there was to look at what is it that we want for our kids, and then what do our kids have, and then try to do a gap analysis. So what's the difference between the ideal and the current reality? And then from that, we said, given those gaps, what could we do to try to close the gaps And that's where we came up with our scenarios. Here's a North Star statement that we had. I'll just offer a little editorial on it before I read it for you. At our last meeting, we had some conversation at some of the tables that it's long, that we packed a lot in here. Part of that was because there were a lot of the shared values that arose as we went through the discussion that we really wanted to include. And there was some conversation about trying to cut it down, make it a little bit more bite-sized. Not having had the opportunity to do that collectively as a group, I didn't want to take the liberty to edit it without folks on the committee having the opportunity to come back at it. So what you see is what we developed the first time around. And before we had that consideration about the fact that this might be a run-on sentence with too much in it. But in any event, the committee came up with every Mount Pleasant Community School District elementary student learns and grows in safe, secure, and welcoming spaces designed to support curiosity, belonging, and equitable opportunities, reflecting our community's shared care, commitment, and stewardship today and for generations to come. So like I said, there's a lot packed in there. And again, we generated that based on some of the non-negotiables that the committee talked about. Safety and security was a big one. Making sure that in each of our buildings, every family feels comfortable and confident that their kids are going to be safe and secure in our buildings throughout the day. Dedicated and functional learning spaces, and they looked at that across a couple of different avenues, both our regular classrooms, so think a regular second grade or fifth grade classrooms, but then also specials, art, music, physical education, and then also other support areas, counseling, the library, EL classrooms, special ed classrooms, and learning spaces. And so really trying to have that conversation about recognizing the needs of each child and then recognizing all together and what does it look like to have specific spaces that are designed for those learning opportunities. That led to a conversation about equity across student experiences. Does it look different from building to building, classroom to classroom? Lots of conversation about operational viability. How much does it cost to operate a facility? And then that tied right into the long-term stewardship. What does that look like today, but what does that look like 5 or 10 years from now? What can the community support from a financial standpoint? And how do we incorporate that into the work that we did? So when you look at those 5 and you think about that North Star statement, those were omnipresent. They were constants as we went through the idea generation process. And we used those as measuring sticks when we went through and looked at each of the scenarios that we generated. So as you look at these and as you look way down at the bottom of the report, appendix H down there, you'll see these in there. And we tried to look at these in each of those scenarios and understand what the implications were for them. Things that we struggle to resolve. And you're going to see this as you go through each of the options. Neighborhood schools and equitable learning experiences for our kids. Lots and lots of conversations at the tables and then collectively as a whole about how important neighborhood schools are. And then the tension that existed between that and having equitable learning experiences for kids from building to building. And that tension was constantly present as we went through the dialogue. Incremental change versus transformational change. Is this something we do one step at a time, or is this something that we need to do in one big leap? Both have advantages and disadvantages, and we talked about that extensively. Distributed sites versus centralized campus. We talked about that a lot with operational efficiency, whether it's food service, transportation, the size of the administrative team, those types of things. And pros and cons to both of those, and again, you'll see those surfaced in the scenarios. And then that stability versus the long-term sustainability. We talked about the importance of the neighborhood schools to the viability of community, and then we talked about, again, long-term, what do enrollment trends look like? What does the budget look like now? What do we think the budget looks like with the enrollment trend being what it is in the next 5 and 10 years? None of the scenarios resolves all of these. So that was part of that trade-off. and part of those tensions that went through the scenario analysis. Some addressed some of these better than others, but might have left a significant gap in one of them. And so again, you'll see those as you look at the report, especially if you look at that table that's at the bottom of the report in Appendix H. We'll look at that momentarily. So what are the things that we heard? We heard this in particular after we went on our tours and we were in the facilities. Space and safety limitations are real. And that comes sometimes from design, whether we're not able to have the type of safe and secure entrance that we're looking for from a safety standpoint. It also came from space limitations. We looked at the challenges, for instance, of having cafeterias in gymnasiums and the implications that that has for when we can teach PE. That then had ripple implications for when can we teach our content like literacy and math, and some of the challenges that that presented for us. Student experience, building by building. Something we heard at the tables as people were debriefing on the tours, that depending on the building you're in, you could have a significantly different experience as a student going through the district. Staffing and operations strains. I talked a lot about having to share staff, staff having to travel from building to building, the time, instructional time that's lost from that, the implication that has on scheduling, and then maintaining multiple buildings. A lot of conversation about just being open and honest about the consequences for doing that. Those consequences could be related to things up above, like safety and space limitations. They could be related to long-term maintenance costs and strain on the budget. So those are things that surfaced across our meetings and showed up in that scenario analysis. So how do we come up with these scenarios? We went through what I would call a plain language process, which is not using educationese, not using jargon, but going through and thinking about what are the things that we could do. And we generated a list of opportunities. And then after we did that, each of the groups went up to a whiteboard, a white sheet, and on there, they shared the scenarios that they developed. We clustered those together and came up with some themes for them. We labeled them, we tried to give them a plain label title for it, so we knew what that looked like. And then after we did that, we went through and did that nominal vote process to figure out which of the ones that we really should spend our time, energy, and effort digging into. Again, we didn't do costing, we didn't do feasibility filtering, how long would it take to do this, how much would it cost to do that. We focused really on the big picture, not the details. And again, these were generated by the work at the table, not by me. I want to make sure that people heard that. My goal was to try to hear what people said. I try to reframe, maybe offer some constructive language suggestions for it so that we can get those down to those plain language descriptions. But this really came out of some really hard work done by folks sitting at the tables in the committee meeting. We had two top vote getters. They got 30 votes each. When we first planned to do this, we thought we'd come to you with 3 scenarios. The next two got 16 and 14, very close to each other. Then after that, there was a pretty significant drop-off. We dropped down to 6 after that. So as a committee, we decided collectively that we would do all 4. And for those in the audience who were with us on December at that meeting, you know that made us work a little bit faster and a little bit harder because it took us a little extra time to get all 4 of those flushed out. So again, we had 4 that clearly rose to the top in terms of potentials to bring to the board, and we made the decision to go through all 4. Actually, I should stop for a moment, maybe stop sharing just for a minute here and just so I can see everyone. Actually, I tell you what, I won't stop sharing. No, because I can't find that button there, John. But let me stop before we go through the scenarios. Does anyone at the table have questions that we could answer, either John or I could answer before we move on and walk through the scenarios?
Did you have the same small groups each time, or did the small groups vary? Did you work with different people work together? Were they kind of the same?
Great question. I did joke with them, so people in the audience will recognize this. I gave them a hard time. It felt a little like church sometimes because people came in and sat at the same pews, but no, there was no assigned seating. There were no assigned groups. People moved around from table to table. I had a couple people that were really good about rotating from group to group, so we got some varied input in each one of those meetings.
I had a different group at every meeting, so.
Yeah. Those were my disruptors. They were fantastic. They would come in and sit at different tables with me. All right, so we take a look at the scenarios. And again, these come to you in no particular order. The first two, we had two that got 30 votes. And I'll just toggle back and forth real quick so you know what they are. So one was a pre-K to 5 central campus with daycare, and one was closing 3 elementary schools and operating 2 of them. So both of these scenarios got 30 votes out of the team. And we went through again and identified what worked well, where there were concerns and trade-offs, and then we developed a series of board level questions. And I selected one, or in some cases melded a couple of them together to put on this slide. But please know that all of the questions are in the appendix at the bottom. And we can scroll through to that report here in a moment. Things that worked well about centralizing everything on the central campus and including daycare. There would be a unified student experience. Remember, one of the things that surfaced was a concern about equitable experiences from building to building, and that your actual physical location could change your experience as an elementary student. And so this scenario ensured that all of our elementary kiddos had the same experience as they went through pre-K to 5. Dedicated spaces and services, because there was enough room there, the committee envisioned the opportunity to have both regular classrooms with enough space, also specials, art, music, PE, support services like guidance and library, dedicated food service spaces, and dedicated office spaces. So they saw plenty of physical square footage that would allow us to offer all of that. Also some operational efficiencies, things that surface at the table, transportation with one single point of pickup and drop off would likely decrease the number of routes. Things like fewer administrative staff, fewer office support staff, smaller custodial staff, etc. So there were some significant operational efficiencies outside of that were identified. Some concerns and trade-offs. Scale was one. How big is this? How many kids is this? Does this feel too big? Some logistics things came up, things as small but as significant as how does pick up and drop off work? Where's the location of the train tracks? What implication does that have on something like transportation? So there were quite a few logistics issues that were raised by folks at the work groups. The loss of neighborhood schools, and this was a big one. The identity that comes from having the school in your neighborhood was one that caused a lot of angst as we went through and did the analysis on that. The simple complexity of the process, just trying to bring everyone together in one location and recognizing that would be a lot of work in order to do that. So a question that comes up is, does the educational and operational benefit outweigh the scale and the disruption of full centralization? Recognizing that it would be disruptive and it would be a much larger elementary school than what we currently have. The next one was closing 3 of the buildings and operating 2 of them. And again, equity of experience, because you move from 4 elementary centers to 2, we're going to have a greater likelihood that there's going to be more equity when you look at the experience of kids working through their K-5 experience. Again, a reduction of staff inefficiency. There's less drive time for specials. There's a greater opportunity for us to ensure that we've got less impact on specials on the regular ed programming. much more likelihood that we've got some of those dedicated spaces we need for either support services like special ed or EL or things like counseling and library. Some of the concerns and the trade-offs. Again, close to elementary schools, what's the impact that that has on the neighborhood? And again, that theme ran strong in the first one, and it showed up here again, recognizing that that would have a specific impact on those neighborhoods affected. Transportation adjustments, there's a positive in the sense that you're reducing to 2, but still, again, some pretty significant concerns about transporting kids when you've got 2 disparate attendance centers. And then again, transition complexity. Maybe not as great as in the first one, but definitely a significant operational change for the district. One of the questions that surfaced is the community prepared for school closures in exchange for that improved equity and efficiency? Now these next 2, again, got a lot of votes. Not as many as the first 2, but definitely more than those that did not go through the analysis. So this one had 16, closing all the elementary schools and reconfiguring the middle school to accommodate our elementary kids. And then this one got 14, maintain all of our elementary schools as is and make incremental improvements to those. So what worked well about this one was it maximized consolidation. Again, we would have all of the elementary centers as they currently exist closing, and the proposal was that we would move them into the middle school and remodel the middle school as an elementary school. So again, it reduces our facility footprint. All of those things that we saw up above in scenario A would be pluses for us. We'd be able to reduce operational costs. We'd get transportation efficiencies. We would see the opportunity to improve the equitable learning experience for all the kids as they walk through there, because they would, again, all be in one single facility. Some of the concerns and trade-offs, middle school as a facility designed for older kids, it may be difficult for us to go through and do some of the remodeling needed to make sure that it is appropriate as a learning space for K-5 kids instead of 6-8 kids. There were some concerns about space limitations. Those came from, will we have enough room to do all of the things that we need to do in the middle school for not only the regular ed classrooms, but also for specials and for support services. And then another issue that came up among several of the groups as we went through there was whether or not they thought the community could get behind this. Because of some of those trade-offs that I just described, would the community actually see this as an appropriate solution? So one of the questions that came up over and over was, is reconfiguring existing secondary facilities, the middle school, appropriate for elementary learners? You'll also see as we go down and look at the appendices and look at the more detailed results from C. One that I didn't have space to put on here was concerns about the cost of building a new middle school. This scenario had the idea that we would build a new middle school on the high school campus. And there were concerns about the costs that would be associated with doing that. And then the last one we looked at was essentially the status quo of the facilities, but a recognition that we do need to make some changes to those buildings. And so what worked really well with this was the preservation of the neighborhood schools. So what didn't work well for options A and C, which were closure of all the facilities, and didn't work well for B, which was closure of 2 of them, worked really well here because this preserves those neighborhood schools. It preserves the connection that those neighborhoods and those communities have with their elementary school. Another thing that worked really well here is it minimizes disruption. We're not moving families around, we're not moving kiddos around, we're not moving staff around. Yes, we're going to have to do some remodeling to the facilities, but that's significantly less disruptive than moving people. There's familiarity with families and staff. Another thing that surfaced was familiarity with people in the community who may no longer have kids in school. Some of the trade-offs, a lot of the safety and space limitations still remain. A lot of conversations at the table about what could we do with the space we have. Can we actually reconfigure them to have the kinds of safe and secure entrances, for instance, that we saw at Fort Madison? Can we actually get them reconfigured to have, for example, separate cafeteria and gymnasium spaces? Is it fiscally responsible for us to be able to do that, given the cost that goes along with that? Another issue that was raised was we would still have the staffing inefficiencies that we have, trying to balance those out, concerns about sharing specials and other staff members and the amount of windshield time that they have and the instructional time that's lost from that and the constraints that that places on the elementary schedule. And then a big one that came up was long-term sustainability. Can we continue to operate the buildings as is with those with those improvements that we want to do with them over time, given the enrollment projections that we have? So the significant board level question that we had was how financially feasible is it to remodel and maintain all of the elementary buildings long term? All right. So comparing all the scenarios, lots and lots of information. If we had a silver bullet for you, we would have given it to you. We don't. Recognition that no option solves everything. Every one of these scenarios has trade-offs to it, positives and challenges. A big one that came up over and over again was recognizing that we need to ensure that the community trusts the work that is done and is going to be done, and knows that it will not only provide the right experience for our kids today, but our kids tomorrow. And that last bullet, that we're being good stewards of the taxpayers' dollar. How do we make sure that an investment today is going to bear the return that we want to long term, and how do we make sure that we continue to pay for it over time? So this is Appendix H, way down at the bottom of your report. We'll just look at it in multiple pages because we need to get it blown up so it's big enough for everyone to see. So I just want to be able to crosswalk these. So we looked at them all above, and the appendices in there. G has each one of these laid out in detail, but looking at them across all four, I think helps you as you go through the next steps. So again, walking left to right there, we had our first two, A and B, that had 30 votes, C was 16, D with 14. That student experience piece, you can see that that unified experience weighs heavily when we get over on scenario A. As you move to the right on scenario D, you get to the concerns that were raised back in October when we met the first time about the different experiences that students in our district have depending on the building that they go to. That's reflected in the second line there about equity and making sure that every kid in the district has the opportunity to have that same elementary experience. And the trade-offs that exist when some kids don't, and what that means not only for their education as elementary students, but what does that mean when they get into middle school. Facilities and space, you can see that, again, moving left to right there, one of the options in A and B is as we go through and do that reconfiguration, that we can really create dedicated spaces for those specific learning environments and those support spaces. The opportunity to make those purposeful, we struggled with as we moved from left to right, and part of that was recognizing that there were significant constraints on our current facilities, and we may not have the opportunity to do the remodeling that would allow all of those things that we identified to be completed in that process. Safety and security, and I think this was again really highlighted in the trip to Fort Madison as people looked at what does a secure learning environment look like, what does a secure entrance look like, what our office spaces currently look like, can our buildings actually support the kind of redesign that we need to make sure that parents feel safe and secure when they send their kids to school. And the centralized one, it created an easier pathway to make that process happen. That did not preclude that from happening in scenarios B, C, and D. One of the things that was raised at the table talk was the cost of doing that. Staffing and collaboration. We had quite a few staff members on the committee, which was very helpful because they could give us the lived experience of the people working in the buildings. If you start this time, go all the way to the right, move to the left. Ongoing challenges about either grade level teachers being able to have that conversation with each other, being able to go up and down and talk to your grade level colleagues that were either grades above or below, and then running PLCs, professional learning communities, and staff development, the challenges that exist right now across the 4 separate facilities. And then again, as you move to the left on there, the fewer facilities you have, whether it's all together at the middle school in C or all together at Central Campus in A, but having everyone in one place will really increase the communication and collaboration for staff. Operations and logistics, knowing that in A and C, being centralized creates lots of efficiencies and lots of opportunities to save money through consolidation. With B and D, you're going to operate more facilities, and that's incrementally going to be more expensive than operating just one. Community identity. Again, if we start all the way over on the right side, we know that having 4 elementary centers creates strong neighborhoods. It creates identity, creates connection, not only with current kiddos, the families that live there, but also with alumni or parents who live in the neighborhood, community members rather who live in the neighborhood, and that's a huge asset for the district. On the other hand, we got over to scenario A and C and talked about having one facility creates a system-wide identity, and that there's an enormous benefit from that as well. And it's like having the one high school, having the one middle school. We know when that came up at the table that there's a lot of loyalty and a lot of connection from that one single system-wide identity at the secondary level, and there's some conversation about what that would look like if we had that at the elementary level. Transportation impacts, again, starting right to left, no change. Right now is scenario D, keep all those facilities open. We recognize that for all of the other 3, there could be some pretty sore things. Whether it's bus time for kids, whether it's potential complexity of having one facility at A and D for parent pickup and drop off, but recognize there were some pretty significant impacts for transportation. Flexibility for the future. Right to left, limited with our existing buildings. Some of that due to the date of the buildings and the current physical layout. When we talked about C, concerns about how flexible is the middle school as we remodel it for an elementary. And with A and B, because there's going to be more remodeling involved with those facilities, perhaps an opportunity not only to design for today, but try to think about what things might look like down the road. Last 2 for us, I put this one in the scale of change required. Kind of subjective from that standpoint, but if we think about just how much work needs to be done, scenario D has the least amount of work that needs to be done, and A probably has the most work, although C is probably right there with it, reconfiguring the middle school, building a new one. And then B, a little bit more moderate, because we're going to keep one of the facilities intact and do some remodeling there. I tried to identify some primary trade-offs based on the input of the committees. Flexibility versus scale and disruption in scenario A. After the walkthrough at Central Campus, we had some great feedback at the committee table about what we could do with the space there, but then also recognize that there's going to be a lot of disruption in the community to get to that place. Scenario B, there's still some neighborhood presence there, and that was seen as a positive, although we lose neighborhood presence in 2 of those neighborhoods. And then the equity piece, looking at trying to make sure that we had a more unified experience for our kids. In scenario C, again, like A, very efficient, but some real concerns about the developmental fit. Is a middle school actually going to be able to accommodate K-5 kiddos? And then scenario D, the stability piece, we know what we have. It gives us an opportunity to continue that, but some real significant concerns about, can we continue to afford that long run? So what we give to you as a board is these 4 scenarios, our collective thinking about it, things that work, things we're concerned about. We would invite any questions from you or clarification about what additional analysis is needed, and whether there's any further explanation that we need to work through. So my questions to you on behalf of the committee: what feels clear? What feels unresolved? What additional information do you need? I'm gonna stop sharing now. Let's see if I can do this for you. There we go. Let's see Mike and I again. And John, maybe before I open it up for the board to see if they've got questions for me on behalf of the committee, anything that I may have missed in summarizing the incredible amount of work done by the committee.
Yeah, I don't, nothing stands out to me. We do have a number of committee members here this evening. I guess if it's appropriate, I would offer the same thing to them. Is there anything that was missed, that stands out to you that was missed? Something that we want to make sure that the board hears tonight?
Hey, John. In the second scenario B, it said close 3 and operate 2. Does that mean building a new one, right? So we can't
Great
close
question.
3, we can't close 3 and operate 2 because we only got 4.
So the idea with that was, whether you close 3 buildings and use the central campus, although it wasn't determined exactly what the format would look like for that. There was some conversation about could central campus be a combination of daycare and early childhood? Could it be better suited for our intermediate kids, grades 3 to 5? So both of those were discussed at the tables.
Hey, John.
Yep.
One thing that I would call out is, I know in our neighborhood scenario came up as part of like option 4. I think the other discussion point that we had is neighborhood schools that almost go out the window because we have grade like at buildings today. So when we talk about travel time being increased or decreased, it doesn't really matter because at some point through your educational journey, you're going to have to travel either near or far to attend those places.
Mhm. Any other comments on that? Matt's comment? Travel time, pickup, drop off for parents at various buildings.
Scenario 4, it says there's a low change. You're talking about shutting down school for probably 2 years, pulling in portables to put them in there to do a full remodel on 4 different schools. So I'd argue that that one is not a low change.
That's a good point. I think the low change idea there was that there was stability of the attendance zones and that there be that disruption that would be required for that remodeling, but that the stability of the attendance zone was one of the primary pluses on that one. So what, I'll go back and just share those questions with you again. Are there things that feel unresolved about this? Because I do have to tell you, if you think about it, we just took about half an hour to summarize what the committee spent well over 6 to 8 hours of in-person time, plus the tours and the thought process in between. So there may be things that I left out of the summary that I feel unclear or unresolved to you. And I would do my best, either myself or John or the other folks that are with us tonight, to try to get those questions answered for you.
My question for those in attendance tonight that participated in the committee, again, thank you very much for that. Now that not a whole lot of time has passed since your last meeting, but I'm curious, at the end of this process, well, the end of those 3 meetings, now that you've had a little bit of time to think about it, maybe you've had a chance to speak with some other people in the community and share your experience, share your thoughts of the conclusions you guys made. Was there anything glaring that stood out to any one of you after the fact? Did anybody come to you and say, you know, what about this? Or, I can't believe you guys talked about this. You know, I know that's kind of a general question, but just really large topics. Did anybody think of anything after the fact, or have anybody come up to them and present a glaring thing that wasn't thought of? You know, I can't speak for everybody else, but Dr. Murley has hit on it. We do feel good about the sampling that we got in the participation in the committees. But I also want to know and gauge how close did we come. And I felt like that might be gauged by some of you going back and talking to your peers and sharing your experience. Do you all feel like we, you know, sampled the community very well? Yeah.
Aaron, I would just say the one thing that I think came up was just, you know, bond will never pass, bond will never pass, bond will never pass. I mean, when I was speaking with folks, I think the thing I would really keep in mind is this could take years. I mean, this is a long process, I think, to get your community fully behind whatever you decide. I mean, I think it's going to take some effort.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that we're all aware of that.
Well, I mean,
And well, no, I'm not diminishing what your point is. I'm just trying to relate to your realization of that we're sharing that as well. And obviously, this isn't something that we want to rush into, right? I guess that piece of it, even though you made it clear that you all didn't talk about costs because, you know, that would have extended your time and you don't have all of the information necessary to talk about the costs, but surely the topic of a bond came up. I think a lot of these scenarios would require some type of a bond, so surely that was, you know, on a lot of people's lips and kind of tossed in there. How much talk was there of the need of a bond and gauging the popularity amongst the committee members on that topic?
And maybe one thing I would offer, and certainly I encourage the others present to share too, but there was a lot of conversation about the fact that this needs to be a process that generates trust, because that trust is what's going to drive any support for a future bond. Again, one of the issues that came up, you're right, that without having access to all the information, there was a conversation about not trying to assess or even trying to ballpark cost estimates for it. But one of the other components of trust that was talked about was being realistic about what the long-term implications for the budget look like, and making sure that those are also part of the conversation, recognizing that if we're going to be good fiscal stewards of the taxpayer dollar, it needs to be today's dollars and tomorrow's dollars, and that's both the operating cost today and the potential need for a bond to fund some of the work. And that came up regularly at the table conversations.
Chris?
I think one of the things that I would like to point out is that the committee did not focus on the financial aspect of it, and I did have people in the community ask me, when are you going to talk about the financials? And I said, I don't know if that's coming at the next meeting. And then when it came to the third meeting, I wasn't sure when that was ever going to become a part of it. But what I tried to relay to them is that I thought it was intentional to not be discussing the financials, because that was not our job to determine if this was affordable, we were to focus on the kids' needs and the community's needs and the feasibility of moving into the future for our kids. I served on the committee without children in the school district any longer. Our kids have graduated, but I will say that from touring the buildings from the time my kids were in elementary school to now, and that hasn't been that many years, I'm not that old yet, but you know, there's been a big change in that period of time in just since our last child graduated in 2024. And so to see the change at the elementary level where kids are split up and kids are learning in the hallways and supplies are stacked in the hallways is very different than even those years that our children attended school at the elementary level. So I think it was intentional, and I think it was good that we didn't talk about the finances of it, because we wanted to focus on the needs of the kids, and obviously the needs require dollars. But I think that was where, and we did talk about that there's, you know, how are we gonna ever get a bond issue to pass? I believe in Fort Madison, they did it without passing a bond issue. And that also was eye-opening to visit their campus. It's just a very different experience than what we have here. I'm not trying to say one is better than the other. No one likes to accept change as a whole. You don't want to see something that has always been part of the community leave the community, but I think if you look at it from a student's perspective, and even when I talked with some of the educators, I did sit with different people throughout the time, because I wasn't sure. I wasn't in the buildings all the time anymore. I said, what do the teachers want? The response I was given is they want to be able to work together. They want the collaboration. They want to see things come together in one central location. Whether we keep 2 buildings open, 1 building open, we didn't finalize all of that. That we didn't feel like was our job. But I think that that the work that we did solidifies. You can see from the votes, 30, 30, and then it drops to half. And the committee was made up of 44 people. And so you can see the percentages there in the first 2 scenarios. And I think that speaks volumes to what the community as a whole is driven towards, but may not necessarily agree with how to fund it. And that's all I guess I would say, is that I think to look at it, we were not looking at dollars and cents. We were looking at what would be the best scenario for our kids to get an education here in Mount Pleasant, Iowa. And that's what I think we did that. And I think we did a good job, and I think we worked together. It isn't the answer that everybody will like, but I know from my table on the questions for the board was, and I don't know whether if all the questions are included, was how then do we sell it to the community? What do you need from the community, and maybe from us as a committee, to continue to go out and try and do our best to show that this was kind of a consensus. We were a small group of a community that is tight-knit, that supports each other. How do we get everybody to support each other in education for the kids? That's what I think was the most important takeaway from this, and I think that we showed what we want them to be secure, we want them to feel included, we want them to have the opportunities for their specials at all locations, and if that means it has to be one location, then at least everybody's getting the same needs met. That's all, sorry. Long.
Thank you, Chris. Matt, do you have to share?
Yeah, so just a little bit of what he said. I think we saw 2 major things in my conversations is the art of what's possible from even Fort Madison, from everything that Dr. Murley kind of listed as weighing those different options, as well as the realization of what do our current buildings look like. There are a lot of people, including myself, that either grown up here, still live here, or lived here their entire life, that were shocked at the condition of the existing buildings. And I think when we talk about like educating the community, that is going to be a key step to success, regardless of the scenarios that are chosen, is to understand the current state of affairs of existing facilities to even make an informed decision as to what is the best recommendation for the future sustainability of the school district, but also for educational needs.
Man, both of you, excellent points. Thank you for summarizing that so well and being willing to share it. I think that, you know, what comes next, what information do we need? I'm seeing this more as that question coming from you guys. While we have been talking about financials, you know, for the past year, and I mean, we always talk about financials, but the main constraints and challenges that will definitely impact the work of the committee and our decisions moving forward, we've been really kind of hashing out within the last year. We're going to continue to do so tonight. That's going to be an important part of it, and I feel that we. This battery's dying. Where was it? That's going to be our job moving forward, is to make sure that information gets out and present it in a way that's easily digestible, as well as finances can be. But I think that, you know, that's going to be a big challenge of us conveying that message to the community, but also balancing short-term versus long-term needs. We have some very short-term changes that need to be made budgetary-wise, just because of the given circumstance, and then how do we plan for this long-term scenario. But it's going to be our job to convey the finances to you all, and then just like you're doing, I hope that the committee members feel comfortable and willing to share their experience. I really think the success of this is going to rely heavily upon you all being the champions of your ideas. Going out into the community and sharing exactly what you just shared with us is going to be great to get that idea out. I'm sure there'll be a lot of questions of people that you talk to about that, and you would be able to answer them. And then to both of your points, that's a huge part of it, seeing the state of our education buildings as it stands. It was very helpful for the committee, those who were able to go through it. We need to now have that opportunity for more and more people, whether it be us doing video tours to be able to share online, or open houses, you know, frequently to invite anybody and everybody. Hopefully they can come in and see, because that really is a big piece of this. So thank you both for sharing that.
Yeah, I completely agree that going and seeing the schools was eye-opening, but it was a big shocker to go from our school to Fort Madison School. And I think it would be really helpful if you could show the public what is possible, show them what we have, what is possible. I think that was the biggest shocker to me.
I think our takeaway is, well, obviously, we have to, Fort Madison couldn't pass bonds as well, so they got creative, so they've kind of laid some groundwork, so there are other ways to do it, right? It does take longer, and as you wait, it gets more expensive, we know that, but we are attentive to that, and it was, I think, even eye-opening for us to see what they did without that, but it does take time, and the transition affects a lot of people. So we will have to take all of that into consideration, but we know in that 3, 5, 10, 15-year plan that there are going to be some bumps along the road, but with an end goal, we can figure out financially how we can get there. Yes, we would all love it to be in 5 years we're operating under ideal conditions. probably not realistic, but as long as we keep that idea out there, we can continue to work towards it, and that's really what the board is gonna be tasked with. How can we make those changes and affect and improve the educational environment for as many students as possible?
Angie, one more thing that I forgot to mention, but I would say there was a resounding agreement that the staff that we have as well is resilient in the sense of basically dealing with whatever is thrown their way. They find a way to make it happen. I think the bigger question though is like not overlooking that, to understand at what cost does that come from an efficiency standpoint, but also from an equitable standpoint, because at some point in time, that is chewing into labor costs as well as just dollars against a budget. And so what is that overall cost savings if you eliminate those inefficiencies and streamline that for a better educational experience? So.
Definitely, we'll be continuing to talk about our upcoming budgets and the reductions we need to make due to declining enrollment, and there are obviously several different ways you can go about that, and we'll be looking at all of those ideas on how we cut costs to keep our children's education in the forefront, but also realizing that we don't have an unlimited bank account either. Any other board members have questions or comments, things that I would kudos, thank you. You guys did a great job being on the board for 8+ years. I think we've talked about some kind of scenario like most of them most of the time, so.
Basis breaker, parent, local business owner as well. Yeah, appreciate all your time, everything you guys do. One big eye-opener for me, I guess, was how bad the schools really are. Unfortunately, this issue is going to take, years to really figure out. A lot of big plans across the board. But one thing that stood out is, there are things we can do right away. For instance, like over at Van Allen, the soccer goals can be fixed, you could have nets, can be re-welded, kids should be playing foursquare basketballs. At times, the kids shouldn't have to be worried about getting, spoiled milk, or the milk is out of date. I shouldn't have to sit out in Lincoln and get fiberglass in my forearm from, the tables being so run down. So I think there are things that we could address right away to make the experience better for all students. Updated chairs, just things like that. That wouldn't, that would have, we'd have to budget for, plan for, but things that, we could do right away to help alleviate some of the issues that students are dealing with daily. So, yeah, appreciate your time. I do think the committee was a great idea. A lot of good ideas come out of that. Yeah, it's just something, also I think moving forward, the community would have to be involved to really get things passed and done. It is possible, but it would be a little challenging. Yeah, glad you guys did this, and thank you for what you
do. Dr. Murley, do you have?
I'd offer just one last comment on there. Great question that came up in the audience was about the questions. And if you go to the bottom of the report and you look at the appendix where each of the scenarios is laid out, the one thing I asked each table to do was if you could ask the board to consider one paramount question for this scenario, what would it be? I will say a couple of tables cheated and there was more than one question, so if you look at them, there may be some of them that have an uneven number of questions because they had a couple. But these were the things that they said, if I was going to sit down in front of the board and we were going to look at any one of those 4 scenarios, what's the question that I think the board has to answer with this scenario? And you'll see all of those questions at the bottom of each of those appendices. So those are the questions that came from the table. The table said if they had that opportunity to sit in front of you and ask just one question, what would it be? So those are all at the bottom on there. And if I could just go back to the top of the meeting, I was so impressed with the folks that came in and sat down with us. They were thoughtful, they were caring, they were compassionate, they were very considerate of their neighbors. They were very aware of the challenges that this conversation presented and the emotionality that went with it. Someone in the audience, I apologize, you're far enough back, I can't see who's who back there, but they really started with a blank slate. What is the experience that I want my kids to have? What is the experience that I want kids 5, 10 years from now to have in the district? And let's make that our measuring stick. Before we look at what we have, before we think about what we might be able to do with what we have, what's the ideal experience that kids have? And they were super creative and very, very considerate in thinking about where we're at today and where we want kids to go, and really thinking about the long-term future of the community. And I really, really appreciated the thoughtfulness.
Anything else on this? Obviously, the board had not previously. We all have to read and reflect and dig in, and it will be future work session committee conversations. So I don't know that we're super prepared. We're not prepared for any other conversations, but now we have a lot more to look at and digest.
Steve, anything else from your end?
I appreciate you letting me beam in tonight. I'm on the road, and so I appreciate the opportunity to come in. I'd rather be there in person with you in the library again, but thanks for the opportunity to come in and speak on behalf of the committee and try to channel all their hard work, their thoughtfulness, their consideration, their efforts. Thank you.
Yeah, I want to thank you as well, Steve, for all of your work on. I thought you did a fantastic job facilitating. You know, a group of 42 people, that's challenging. I thought you did a really nice job, so thank you.
All right, have a wonderful evening.
Thank you. So then we'll go back to area demographics and local student enrollment information, which also plays into our long-term planning and the facilities that we do need for the future. What are we looking at those? So.
Yep. Okay. We'll close out of this and go back to close out of that as well. Doing the meeting documents here. So, excuse me. In June of 2025, we spent some time looking at some of the demographics and some of the historical enrollment that has been our district over the last generation or so. When I speak generation, it's generally 25 years as a generation. So as it pertains to the buildings, and as Angie said, all of this goes hand in hand. It really runs, either on parallel tracks or on the same track. So as we look at this, I've appreciated Dr. Butler and the visuals that she uses. When the buildings that our elementary buildings, when they were built, all of the multi-tiered instruction, if there was any multi-tiered instruction, it all happened in the same place. And that was in the classroom. That was in that classroom of, back then, 22 to 27 kids. And, 40 years ago, 45 years ago, there were still differences and discrepancies among kids, but it was really as best you could. You tried to handle it in that one classroom. Universal core instruction done in one place. So now, whether you say fast forward or forward, a generation later, this represents the required levels of support that we have to give to our students, not just this universal core instruction here in the middle, but you have tier 2 on this side, which is supplemental, extension, extended learning, and then targeted extension in tier 3. If students need additional support, you've got tier 2 over here, supplemental intervention, and then tier 3, targeted intervention. And then on the bottom side here are the skills for learning. And the skills, the requisite skills that our students need to have to be ready to learn when they come to school. And we're finding, as you guys know, we're finding that the disparity among kids on their skills for learning it can vary greatly between kids. So we're not only teaching kids content, but we're obviously teaching kids how to learn, how to be ready to learn. And so the point in showing you that was, our buildings were built for this right here. And now, this is what our teachers are tasked to do. And Matt commented on that. Our teachers are resilient. They're incredible. And what they're tasked with, what's thrown at them, they adapt. But the facilities, they don't help us a lot with that whole process. So I wanted to say that at the outset as we look at these enrollment trends and demographics. We've had some conversations about this. This is information about Iowa School District enrollment changes and estimates. These are the recent trends. So the fall of 2025, this last fall, certified enrollment for all Iowa public school districts and the accredited non-publics. So publics and non-publics accredited, both in both systems, was 515,221. That's the number of kids served. That was down from 520,000. Actually, I should say 24-25. That's my mistake there. This is 25-26. Excuse me. This is 25-26. The 520,000 was 24-25. When you break it out specifically for public schools and public charter schools, public school districts and public charter schools, the certified enrollment, and that's nearly 92% of Iowa's total certified enrollment, declined from 480,000 in 24-25 to 473,329, a decrease of 1.53%. So about 7,300 fewer students in public schools across the state. Certified enrollment at Iowa accredited non-publics this fall was 41,892, and that's up from 39,356 last year. And that represents just over 8% of the total 2025 certified enrollment. So that gets to the balance of about a 4,800 student difference in total publics and non-publics. Charter schools was public charter schools 1,172, representing less than 1% of the total 2025 certified number. 41,044 participants used their students' first educational savings account at an accredited non-public as of the October 1 certified enrollment date. In 25-26, 205 out of 325 districts experienced a decrease in enrollment. This continues a trend of decreasing enrollment in public schools since 2022. The decline is also evident when you look back to 2016, with some districts experiencing steeper declines than others. These are just some of the comments that some of the Department of Education literature. Factors influencing enrollment, birth rates. We'll look at this a little bit. Lower birth rates continue to contribute to a decrease in the student population. For public schools, education savings accounts, they've increased the attendance at private schools through the use of the ESAs, often referred to as vouchers, and that affects public school enrollment. Open enrollment allows students to attend public schools outside of their resident district where they live, potentially leading to enrollment shifts between districts. We've experienced some of that as well. And then demographic shifts. Changes in population distribution affect enrollment, with some areas seeing growth. We'll look at the population map here in just a second. Central Iowa, the metro area and the corridor area between Iowa City, Cedar Rapids, Lynn, and Johnson County, and then others seeing declines. Migration trends, shifting populations affect where our students are enrolled. So impacts. Decreasing enrollment can impact school district funding, as a large portion of the funding is allocated per student or per pupil. At a 2% increase, state supplemental aid, more than half of the school districts in Iowa for fiscal year 27 will be on the school budget 101% guarantee. It means half of the schools in Iowa would receive less funding for the fiscal year than they did in the previous fiscal year because of decreased enrollment. Resource allocation, something that we've been talking about. School districts with declining enrollment may face decisions about consolidating programs, facilities, services. School closures, declining enrollment in some areas could lead to school closures. And rural districts. Rural districts have been particularly affected by declining enrollment. Although the report suggests they saw some of the largest increases in per student spending between 2015 and 2019. Some projections from the DE, public school enrollment is projected to decrease by about 10,000 students over time, while private school enrollment is expected to rise by about 2,000 students. The use of ESAs is expected to increase further as income restrictions have now been lifted. So let's just dig a little deeper regarding our own demographics. This information is from the Iowa State Data Center, not Iowa State University, but if you Google Iowa State Data Center, you have access to all of this information. This is Iowa County population and percent change. And this is from April 1 of 2020 to July 1 of 2024. We looked at this in June, but they didn't have the July 1, 2024 data in, but they do now. So I wanted to update this for you. You can look and see by county the population change. Now this isn't students, this is population change in each county. You can see here's our county, Henry County, since 2020 to 2024, July 1, our population in Henry County has decreased by 5.5%. There's not another county even close to that population decline. The closest is up here in Floyd County at 4%.
Does Iowa Wesleyan affect that though? Because were they counting Iowa Wesleyan students?
I don't know. You just kind of see the region there. So you can see the region.
I'll make these a little bigger. This is all posted on the meeting for tonight. So if you want this, or you just let me know, because I can get you these documents. This is 5-year-old population by county. So these two counties right here, Henry and Jefferson. And why is that important? Why are you pointing out 5-year-old populations? Well, those are our kindergarten kids. Essentially, if you're 5 years old, you're eligible for kindergarten. So this is Henry County up here, back in 2020. This is 2020 through 2024. You can see and again, this is not just Mount Pleasant, but this is Henry County. You can see in 2020 it was 238 5-year-olds, flattened out a bit here, 214 5-year-olds in 2024. The same data for Jefferson County. The other counties it's just FYI, just showing the region. These bottom two here are Lee County and Washington. So this here is Lee County. 2020, they were 411 5-year-olds in 2020 and 362 in 2024. And this is Washington County right here. Line's just a bit flatter. I know that some of this is hard to see. Board members, you have this in your packet, but I'll make it as big as I can so people can see. This is births, deaths, and natural change by county. I pulled up Henry County and highlighted some of the cities in Henry County. If there's a blank cells indicate that there were 0 to 3 occurrences before 2012, and from 2012 forward, any blank cells indicates 0 to 5 occurrences. So, as board members, you can see here in 2020, it gives you a feel for what is happening demographically in our county. Again, I apologize for it being so difficult to see. As a total in Henry County back in 2020, there were 178 births, 289 deaths, for a natural change of minus 111. And I just highlighted some of the, we get students from Hillsborough, Mount Pleasant was 83 births back in 2020, 144 deaths for a shift of minus 56. So that's 2020. You can do the same thing over here, 2021. And, it's just the natural trend. Negative 42 in Mount Pleasant. ...2022, and the most recent information that they have is 2023. In Mount Pleasant, 105 births, 127 deaths for a natural change of minus 21. And the county total was minus 52. County total back in 22 was minus 44. And up here was minus 111 and minus 67 for Henry County. So again, what I wanted to try and do is take a look, larger scope, statewide, and begin to funnel it down to the trends that we're experiencing right here in Mount Pleasant Community School District. What we want to look at here next is total K-12 enrollment in our classrooms. So this is Mount Pleasant Community School District, total kindergarten through 12th grade. And I have left preschool off of this because there were years previous that I want to look at that we didn't have preschool. So this is just kindergarten through 12. And if you said, hey, how many kids do you have in your kindergarten class? Add them all up. How many kids do you have in your first grade class? Add them all up. If you do that for the entire district, what is the number of kids K to 12 in the classrooms. So this is the graph, and the reason I'm starting here in FY 2000, so this is 99-2000. I start there because in 99-2000 is when we entered into the current attendance center configuration that we have been in since that time. In the fall of 99, this facility, the high school, opened. We had classroom additions put on Lincoln and Harlan, and Saunders Elementary was closed. And so then at that time, since that time, 4 elementaries, a middle school, a high school, and an alternative school, 7 attendance centers. So you can see, sorry. In 2000, we started at that time, K to 12, 2,117 students. Kind of had a dip there a couple of years, but stayed fairly steady. We peaked in, I believe that is fiscal year 07, 06, 07?
8.
07, 08?
Fiscal year 8.
So that would be 07, 08. 2,172 students at that time, and then we just continue to see the trend. We get down here to this fall, 25-26, fiscal year 26, 1,648 K to 12. So you're talking about a shift of between 500 and 600 students over that time. And again, as it relates to facilities, you know, the point to be made here is we're still in that same configuration, 7 attendance centers, 4 elementaries, a middle school, a high school, and an alternative high school. And enrollment drives funding. And so that's one of the challenges that we have. Let's go to this next bit of information. This is from the Iowa Department of Education. I won't read through this. This is how the DE develops their projections for enrollment. Going forward, certified enrollment, it's a grade progression rate method that they use, and then they use live birth information as well. So let's just take a look. We did this back in June as well. In 16-17, I'll make this bigger so folks can see it, but I went all the way back to 16-17. The projection at that time was 1,961. This is certified, so this is certified enrollment. It's different than served enrollment, but certified is for funding. 1,961. You can see the actual in 16-17 was 1,970. So fairly close. The following year, 1,953. The actual was 20 students less than that. And just progressing forward, here's the projection from the DE. This was the actual. Projection, actual. Had a pretty big drop here in 2021. That was COVID year. 2020, 2021. The projection, 1,911. The actual, 1,858. There was no data on projections the following year. This was our actual, 1,830. We went 1,851. The actual was 1,792. There was no data the following year. Our actual went down to 1,733. Now this last year, 24-25, The projection was 1,709 certified enrollment. We had a bit of a bump, 1,757. And now this year here, 25-26, the projected number by the DE is 1,702. And I can tell you that our certified number, I didn't put in here, but it's 1,705. So pretty close on that projection and actual. And I think it's really important for us to look at as we have this discussion about facilities and maintaining facilities and the ability to maintain facilities. These are the projections for succeeding years. We were at 1702, so we ended up 1705. So 26-27 next year, the projection is 1650. 27-28, 1626, 28-29, 1567, and then finally 29-30, a projection of 1,523 certified enrollment. This has not been updated, beyond 29-30. So these are we have to keep this in mind as we look at facilities, as we look at budget, fiscal responsibilities, the board's fiduciary responsibilities. We have to keep these things in mind. Specifically, elementary grade level enrollment, and it's interesting, I've said this before, some of you who are graduates of Mount Pleasant and you remember class sizes of, if I go back to that 07-08, you look at class sizes at that time, 2,172 students. You had class sizes of 180, 163, 175 as a class. And you can see now the difference. This is just our elementaries, but kindergarten, if you together in Mount Pleasant and in Salem, it's 119 kids in the class. First grade 127, second grade 112, third grade, and it's you kind of consider it a big class now if you have 130 kids in the class. This one document here I did include preschool on, because we are serving preschool right now. Again, this was as of November 1, 2025. We had 75 students in preschool, and just in conversation with Mrs. Sands and kind of what do we see as an increase, because generally we do see some increase from preschool to kids who end up attending kindergarten, anywhere from 10 to 20 students. 20 would probably be a big number. Well, if you're talking about 95 kids, 95 kids in a kindergarten grade level as a total, if you add 20. I think that's the last document. So I want the point of this board members, or the goal of board members, was to refamiliarize you with our enrollment data, our demographic data, and the realities that we are facing as a district, as a region, as a county, as a state, as a region, as a county, as a school district, and how that affects everything that we do, from attendance centers to making the budget balance as well.
It lays the groundwork for in February. We'll be reviewing some financial planning, the the projections out and how, when we're trying to set a budget and reduce spending, what does that mean year over year with the projections for enrollment? So we can't make one-time decisions as we're moving forward, where we will need to be more proactive looking out further, so we're not keep making changes, and we're making the right sustainable changes as well. So this plays into the conversations and the data that we're gonna look at in February. Any questions, other information you'd like to be gathered?
Just a reminder that Wednesday morning, Tim Oswald from Piper Sandler will be joining us. Jessica and I know Josh said he's planning to attend. He's going to give us a high level on the comprehensive financial planning model that we are using, and go over some of the data from that report. So he'll do that on Wednesday, and then we also have that planned for, as you mentioned, the I think it's February 23rd is the work session in February.
John, thank you for compiling this data. I know it takes a lot of time, but it's very crucial, as we've already stated, as conversations go forward. So those in attendance and going and talking to other people who you know who aren't in attendance tonight, please just share that this data is not only available, but that we are tracking it, down to, county data, birth, death rates. There's multiple ways to look at it. We're looking at it all. So when we make these budget decisions, it's not just pulling a rabbit out of a hat. We're looking at everything that factors into it. You can Google it, you can find the data on your own to share with other people. The Iowa School Board Association also has a ton of data compiled that if, as a community member, you aren't able to access, contact us. We have access to it. We can gladly provide you with regional data, comparative data with other districts our size. And we're participating in activities like the one John just mentioned about getting together with school financial advisors and people who live and breathe this data, and they're able to compile projection models specific for each school district. So we are taking advantage of all of the resources that we have available to us. We're running models constantly to update it with current information, and we're trying to do the best we can to assemble and analyze all of the data that's available to us, and there's a plethora of it. So please share that with people that you speak to if they're not regularly attending or following along with our minutes, that we are truly looking at the most vast amount of data that we possibly can.
The last item on our work session is discussion regarding district communication plan. It came out of committee meetings earlier this month. We have a new website coming.
It is coming. We just, yeah.
So for those of you that are familiar with our current website, is not user-friendly. So our new website should be a welcome change for what we have now. So one of the topics of discussion is how do we roll that out? How do we get that education out there? What information's on the new website? How do we get around it? How do we welcome people to start using the website again with the intent of being more user-friendly? So we had some of those discussions. We have some discussions from coming out of IASB convention on our learning sessions, on what other school districts do, what could we do better, what should we try different. Some things that have came out of convention and student success summits and things are the student spotlight's one of them. So we just actually monkeyed this. The social media came from there. So lots of good ideas come from convention, so we kind of needed to debrief from that, and we haven't had a chance to do that either. So Aaron, I don't know if you want to start with your idea for open meetings?
Sure. One of the sessions that I attended, and Jessica, you were in the same attendance, at this past year's school board convention, was a presentation by a neighboring school district, the Muscatine School District. And there were several of their board members in attendance, but the superintendent was the one that gave the presentation. And he was talking about something new that they are trying as a school district, and more specifically a school board. They are adding an additional meeting on top of the committee meetings and business meeting and work session that they already do. That is more of an open forum for the community to participate in. If you're unaware with how meetings like this are supposed to be run, we have strict open meeting laws that we have to follow, where we have to print an agenda a certain amount of time ahead of time. We have to have a majority of us present in order for it to be an official meeting. So there are all these guidelines that we have to follow, and that includes how the community can participate in those meetings. The community is always welcome at these meetings, but they're not always allowed to speak freely whenever they want on whatever topic they want at these meetings. And that is a common theme that we hear amongst community members, is they wish they had that. And if they come to a normal board meeting, they might go away disgruntled, thinking, well, I didn't get the opportunity to speak, or if I did speak by getting on the agenda, the board didn't respond. And again, that's following laws that we have to follow. So back to the presentation, they thought, well, what if we presented or an opportunity for an open forum for public to come and speak openly and candidly. So they developed a way to hold a meeting once a month before their regular board meeting for about 45 minutes. They thought it worked best in a different location, maybe not a different building, but maybe a different room than the actual board meeting is going to take place, to kind of create a different environment so that it's not so stuffy and expected. But the superintendent was always in attendance, and then 2 board members would attend as well. And that would rotate, to evenly distribute the time expectations of the board members. But what that allowed was that it's not a quorum. There isn't a majority of the board present. So it's not an official meeting. There's not going to be a decided agenda of what's going to be talked about. We don't have to post minutes and all this and that. So community members can attend and then ask whatever questions they want to ask. And the superintendent and the 2 board members that are there attempt to answer it the best they can. Now, we still have to adhere to board policy, so a lot of the answers are going to be straight from policy book. We attempt to answer the questions as best we can. But that was an opportunity for them as a community to really increase the transparency. They touted that it built on their trust with the community and the school board. Now, on our end, if we are considering doing this is kind of the first opportunity we have to discuss it. But as a board, I will admit that seems a bit scary, to have somebody be able to come in and just say whatever they want to us. That could have the potential of who knows what. So, if we were to do this, it would be on a trial run. We would lay out all the guidelines ahead of time, what the expectations are and whatnot. But hopefully, if we decide to do this, it would be an opportunity for people to feel more heard, maybe get answers to some of the questions that the questions don't come up regularly. And so yeah, that was the presentation. I've kind of incorporated what it might look like for us as well, but I just wanted to share what their experience was and how that might be implemented here. So I'd love to hear the rest of your board members' thoughts on that.
Did they say if they had other school staff participated as well, or just the superintendent?
It sounded like just the superintendent. And I imagine that there would probably be questions asked that would be better fielded by staff members. And I think in that instance, it would need to be explained ahead of time that there may be questions we're not able to answer tonight. But we will look into them and get back to that person. But yeah, it sounded like just 2 board members and the superintendent.
I think it's a very scary idea. I'm not gonna lie there. But I think through some of our trainings that we've been through as well, it might help with some communication when we're talking about conflict resolution and issue resolution and making sure that it gets done at the lowest level possible, that if those questions are asked and there are more people, then we can answer them collectively, that we understand your frustration, these are the route that you should go, and please start at your building or start with your teacher and work the steps, right? So I think it would allow some opportunity to give some more direct guidance for those questions if you don't have maybe a connection or are not familiar with us as board members.
I think the idea has a lot of merit. It's going to be a learning experience as we go, but it also creates an opportunity for follow-up after the fact. If we don't have the answer now, how do we create a mechanism to share that after the fact?
It might be, I know that you said they don't share minutes or anything, but then is it maybe help develop an FAQ that maybe could be added to the website as we continue to utilize our resources? Maybe frequently asked questions, or did you knows, or some things that people are asking, more people probably want to know, and how do we share that information out if somebody does ask and we come into that situation?
I think it'd be important. I agree. I think it has a lot of merit. I think it would be important to, so you know, with less than 4 board members, it's not a meeting, right? However, I do think it would be important for board members to have a good, solid understanding of, you know, okay, how deep could we get into a conversation about a personnel issue or some other issue like that? You know, just to completely freewheel it like that, I think we would need some, and I would want, you know, some training on that as well. At least some, you know, some legal guidance, some school board association guidance on that.
Yeah, while it increases the capacity that the community has to ask questions and hopefully get the answers that they want, I still think there are going to be obvious limitations. You know, the opportunity presents itself for a community member to have a very specific issue that they have that, you know, you bring up personnel issues. That would be one thing that we could not discuss. Even though it is not a technical meeting, we still can't discuss personnel issues. So it would be a give and take, and hopefully a certain amount of respect from the community would be understanding of, we want to answer all of your questions, but, you know, still exists within a realm of limitations.
Do we know when Muscatine meets? Could we go
That's a good idea.
observe one of theirs? I would like to see, right, instead of trialing something by fire.
That's a really good idea. I like that.
What's that?
No more than 3 of us.
Correct.
Yeah, I can find out. He said it in the meeting, or in the presentation. It seemed like it was very similar to ours, which might pose an issue, but I'll find out and let you know.
Do they stream them? Do they stream that?
They don't with that.
Okay.
We touched on that because somebody asked that. The superintendent felt, well, it wasn't just his decision, but they felt that people aren't necessarily their most comfortable when they know the entire community is watching, or if there's a camera on them. There's, you know, a certain level of performative consideration when it's a very formal setting like this and you know that you're being recorded. So that was intentional to not do it that way, to try to enhance or you know, bring out the most real conversation that could be. and provide somebody the most amount of comfort to speak their mind. And
Happy to check into that and see when they have their meeting before the meeting.
Then have some test questions, see how far they get into answering your test questions.
You're probably not gonna let me ask questions at their meeting, but yeah, I'm happy to find out.
Just a random person from the community.
So with some more specifics, I think something that we all agree that we would want to try. Josh is volunteering for the first time. Just kidding, he's
Yeah,
not.
I'll answer all your questions.
Okay.
I'll respond to all your questions.
What other ways or opportunities do we talked about, Craig, you brought up, how do we share out the new website, how to use it? I think one of the questions was, can we have some education sessions where they could come to the school? We could do it twofold, right? We could have one in each building that brought people into the buildings on a given night with some resources that could help for an hour or so. Hey, if you want to learn more about, you want to see our building and learn more about the new website, here's where we're going to be and do a travel.
I love those ideas. I think, as was mentioned by committee members, you know, some kind of open house style, whatever is included in that. If you want to tour the building, or you know, I think that's just helpful to see. It meets several needs. It meets multiple needs that we have as a district to communicate and to, you know, in that sense, communicate. Here's this is the, I don't know, status of our building. This is what our buildings look like, you know. So.
Dr. Butler, you put a lot of work into. There's more content in the new website, right? So how do we get that out? How do, instead of somebody just digging in and clicking things, like what would you say our biggest advantage of the new website is? You put a lot more content, you've been working on content that goes into it, so how do we get that out?
Boy, that's a good question. Clarity is the biggest piece. We want to be really, really clear, and the current website lacks that clarity. So, I guess I have to think through what the best way is to communicate that, to make sure everyone sees what's different about the website and walking them through that. I don't know, maybe there's a way to use technology to do that.
Right.
Maybe an audio cast of some sort of, here's what's on this page, and here's something you can, check this out.
Because the biggest waste would be to launch the new site and not communicate it well, that here's all the stuff that we added to it and where you can find it.
Could I mention, I thought Samantha O'Connor and Jessica recently, talking a little audio video podcast, they did what's that? You want me to throw it up there? Everybody can see it?
It's okay.
They really did a nice introduction of our new payroll person, Shannon, and they really, it was a great little video with, and so I think that's a really good idea, is to take pieces of the new website and work with Samantha on putting that together into video form as well. Be a great way.
Thought I had was, could we potentially also look to use some of the technology classes, some of the software design or video team, some of the students at the high school, to make how-to videos on where to find certain pieces of information.
It's good.
And I think it was also you that kind of extended that idea. It was floated that at these open house style events, do we have some high school students available to walk through some of the website, have them stationed at computers to welcome people over and show them. I don't know if that would be
Some of our elementary kids could probably do it as well.
Yeah, yeah.
Once the new website is launched, how does the old website get deactivated?
I don't know what that migration is. The launch date is March 15th of the new site. So, I don't know. You know, Doc, shut one off and
I will ask that on.
turn the other one on,
I'll ask that on Monday. It's gonna be a picture.
flip the switch.
I think one of those most frequent questions, the new website, when you click on a staff member's name, you can actually email them instead of it not emailing them. We want to encourage that for people that have tried to use things and it hasn't worked. Please try again now, it does work.
In addition to that, I just reiterating what is already available, I feel like there is a lot of opportunity out there for communication. So just kind of reminding folk what is out there, where they can find it. Those in attendance, please help spread the word. John still does his, it's every Monday on KILJ. It's an hour long.
No.
Not quite that long.
Katie left. I might try and make it an hour long, but she would.
But it's more than just a 5-minute spot. I mean,
It is,
you,
yeah.
you have the opportunity to really elaborate on what's going on within the district at that time. So it's a great opportunity for people to learn up-to-date information on even week by week what's happening. Our Facebook social media is a lot more active thanks to Monkey This and all of that. But we need your help as well. If you are talking to people and you hear somebody else say, well, I wish that they would communicate this way or on this platform, we're all ears. If there's a tactic we haven't thought of, it's not because we are not willing to, it's just we think we've thought of everything. We work in print, online, on the radio waves. I'm not quite sure what else there is, but we're open to it. So please reach out to us if we're forgetting something or we could be better utilized in other ways.
Derek and I did sample this fall, right, our recaps of the board meeting. I do have that after tonight, so I would do a January board recap targeting 3 minutes, no more than 5 minutes to just get the hot topic. So if there is something that you're interested in, then you could dig into the minutes for the live streams, but it is my goal to do that again.
Can we set up at any sporting event, hand out flyers when they come into the door? Saying that there's a new website.
Track, what's March will be, I think we're done with indoor, but at our outdoor facilities, I don't know when we want it.
You have to work the concession stand too.
Yeah.
I can do that.
Hang up the QR code in the concession stand.
Other ideas or things you've seen or want to try?
What are people's thoughts on live streaming and posting committee meetings?
I don't have any opposition to it.
We would just have to look at and test the setup. Obviously, we're in a different room.
Brandon doesn't have enough going on. He could help us out with one more thing.
Let's discuss that. We could do that in policy.
Yeah, yeah, I could definitely make that an agenda item. That's next week, actually.
we're in a work session, so if anybody has any ideas right now and you'd like to throw them out, we're willing to listen. Or email or text, or you can't. Our email addresses are our names, our first name dot last name at MPCSD.org. So we all have school emails as well. All right, anything else?
I don't have anything else.
Mike, anything?
No,
Sounds
I
good.
would agree though that I think if there's any way we can get our people into our school buildings, we need to take those opportunities to get them into the buildings.
Definitely. All right, well, as a reminder, there are committee meetings next week on Thursday and Friday, and our next board meeting is on the 9th. Thank you, and adjourn the meeting at 8:05.
Thanks for being here, everybody.